What's up YouTube, and welcome to another draw along with me. Today I'm going to show you how to change your subject into a template that you can then use for a watercolor design. Now in the description down below I've got a link to the palette that I've used, but also a Procreate file here where you'll get two layers. You'll get the subject themselves as well as the canvas effect already on the top. So you can download that file and open it in Procreate and you'll already have the two layers ready to go for this design. And with all that said, let's get started. So if you've managed to download the Procreate file in the description as well as the palette, you'll have everything you need for today's design. Now in the design what we've got is we've got our subject, which is here, and then we've got this canvas texture on the top, which will just add a nice little bit of polish towards the end of the design. But what we're going to use is we're going to use this subject layer here to create the stencil for the watercolor, and then we're going to go ahead and add all those colors in. Now at this point you can choose to use your own image. The only thing to bear in mind is some of the values may change, but the process is basically the same. So what we're going to do is, if you're going to continue using the same as mine, we're going to make sure we're on the subject here layer. And the first thing we're going to want to do is go up to our adjustments, hue, saturation and brightness, and then the layer option. And then what we want to do is lower the saturation all the way down to 0, down to none. And then we're going to increase the brightness ever so slightly to 54%. Now again, this will change depending on if you've used a different image, but you're trying to get some good strong contrast between your dark areas and your highlights. Once we're done, we're going to hit the adjustments again. Now once we're done with the black and white saturation, we're going to go to our adjustments, we're going to go to curves and layer, and at this point this is where we're really going to exclude all the content that we don't need for this style. So on this gamma layer you can choose to add in more highlights or you can add in more shadows. Now we're going to drag our dots to roughly here at the bottom, keeping it right at the very bottom of the scale. And then what we're going to do is grab the top node and drag it all the way across until it's vertical right next to it. Now it will flick between the two, but you want to stay to the right hand side of the node at the bottom. And what you'll end up with is this black and white design of our subject. Now again, this is the point where, depending on the image you use, you may have to drag these across, for example, into different areas and bring in more or less colour. But I'm going to go back to where I was until I get this lovely sort of black and white look here. Now you can see where I've put my nodes. That's what we're going to use for today's subject. And once you're done, hit the adjustments at the top and we'll be left with this black and white style. Now what we need to do is start to erase all the content we don't need. Now because this image is still technically black and white, all we want to do is go up to our colours and double tap in the top left hand corner to select white. And then we're going to go in and we're going to go down to our calligraphy section of our brush library, and we're going to use the monoline brush, and all we're going to do is increase it to full size, is start to just erase some of the areas close to the subject that we don't want. So I'm only going to get rid up to roughly here, and then looking around our subject we'll get rid of some of the dots that are a little bit too close to him, and then get rid of this over here as well. And the hair is the only thing here that we've just got to do ourselves. So I'm going to reduce the brush size down to 1%, and I'm just going to follow this sort of style of the hair and just create some sort of fake hairline in there. As well as, if I zoom in, I'm just going to thicken that up a little bit, increase my brush size a little bit more, just to create a big gap between our subject and the areas we're about to delete and exclude. So I'm going to go all the way across here, so we get a nice cut off section here. That's good, like that. Make sure we tidy up any loose edges. And then what we're going to do is just to simply quickly get rid of all the rest of it. We're going to go to our brush library. We're going to go down to airbrushing, and I'm going to use the hard blend brush. And the brush size is set to roughly around about 13%. And if I press quite firmly, I'll get like a giant monoline brush basically. And I can get rid of all of that around the outside that we don't need, and we'll be left with just our subject. Now at this point, what we're going to do is, this image is still black and white, so we need to exclude all the white content around the edge here, because we only want to be left with this area here, because that's what we're going to paint in. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our selection. We're going to use the automatic section and the add option, and we're going to simply select what we want in terms of our subject and tap on all the dark areas. And then what we can do is you can just zoom in and just select all the little smaller shapes in here that we want to keep. and a lot of them will help outline the subject. And then let's have a look down here. We just get the rest of his suit, selecting all the little bits that we want to keep. I'm just tapping every single time in the areas we want to keep. And then if I zoom out, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and we're going to use the option of invert, which will then actually select all of the background. Then we're going to go up to our layers, and then on the subject here layer, we're going to tap on it and we're going to use the option of clear. Now that won't visually change much, but you can see on the layer we're now just left with the black areas. Now if I tap on that layer and use the option of alpha lock, now you should still have white selected, so if you don't, double tap in the top left hand corner of the disk and go back to your layer, and then because we've alpha locked it to just the black spaces, we can tap on it and use the option of fill. Now what we've done is we've created the selection and we've made it the same color as the background. It's now ready for us to start painting in with the colors that we want. So we're going to go up to our brush library, we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom until we find the water category, and then in there we're going to use the wet sponge to start. And the settings for this, the opacity I've actually lowered on the brush to 41%, and the brush size is currently set to about, let's go for 20%. And then we're going to go to our colors, and we're going to start with the blue in the middle as the base layer, and then we're going to use the purple and the teal on top. And essentially we're now just going to almost give this shape that we've created a wash. Now because it's alpha locked to just the white area still, we can simply start painting on the screen with our brush, and remembering sort of where our subject was, you can start to just paint in like so with the watercolor brush around the outside and bring all that color in from the edges. And so we're going to go around the glasses here on the face and reveal that. And because the opacity is set to nice and low, we have a good opportunity here to build up a lot of the color. So we've got the rest of his suit to reveal down here like so, and now you can start to see the outline of our design. We can then work out where we want to start bringing in more color. And it's always good with watercolor to sort of add in a nice amount around the edges. So you can see now I'm going around the top of the hair and really punching in a lot more of this blue, a bit more down here, especially around the edge of the suit. And I want to outline some more facial features as well as his ear in there. So this layer here now that we're drawing in is literally, like I said, a sort of a wash. We're just adding in a nice big canvas of blue just so we can see our subject, and now we can paint in whatever you like in whatever fashion you like. So I'm just going to fill in a little bit more of the blue so we've got a good strong early wash. Next I'm going to switch out to the purple, and again I like to just add a little bit more around the outside and blend these three colors together. Now you may have a different palette that you want to use for this design, but I feel that these three colors, they tend to look so good together, especially the teal that we add afterwards. So I'm going to add in some nice strong purple here in the face, and then just add in a little bit more in the suit. Now you can be pretty sort of crazy with this if you want to. I'm always pressing very lightly just to blend in color constantly on top of itself, but what you want to try and do is just make sure you leave like a little bit of white in there so it does have that washed look to it. I'm next going to switch out to then the teal color and just add in color where I fancy, so maybe a little bit here in the hair, edge of the hair as well. And this brush, you have to keep taking your pen off occasionally because it runs out of water just like it would in real life. I'm going to edge the glasses as well. Let's add in some color in there, which looks really cool, especially this teal, which really adds a lot of color and a nice sort of highlight almost tone to the design. And we're just painting in where we want all the color to be. And you can always go back to your original blue and just add in, if you want to just sort of get rid of some of the brighter colors that we've used, and just wash them back out. Now because we've got the canvas layer on the top, we've also got that lovely texture running through the entire thing as well, which looks awesome. Now we can go ahead and sort of loosen the outside of the design a little bit. So we can go to our layers, let's create a new layer and drag it underneath our subject. And then we're going to go to our brush library and continuing in the water section, we're actually going to use this water flicks section down here. And again, the opacity is set to lower than normal, so it's 24%, and the size is set to about 3%. And I'm just going to simply tap around the outside here very lightly, just occasionally just dropping in some extra color and just sort of breaking up our solid shape of our subject and in certain areas down here as well. And then you can also mess around with increasing the brush size, so I've doubled it to 7 now, just to add in some nice extra big splodges of colour, like so. And then you can also switch out your colour to say purple, and then add in some lovely purple dashes around here. And you want to try and keep the gaps broken up a little bit. I'm going to go up to 12% now, just to add in some bigger ones, and just breaking up that colour and the solid shape a little bit more by adding in some splatters. And go a bit further out if you want to, just so it's not so close to your subject, but don't go too crazy with the splatters and to the point where it starts to look messy. And then the final thing I want to do is just add a very light wash in the background. So we're going to go to our brush library and we're going to use the wash brush. And again, the opacity has been reduced, this time to 20%, and the brush size is set to 48. I'm going to use the blue that we've used for the main wash of this subject. We're then going to go to our layers and create a new layer and drag it underneath our splatters that we just added, and turn them on and off just to be sure that's what you've moved. And then on this empty layer, very lightly, top left all the way across the canvas, I just want to give a nice soft blue wash across our canvas, just to blend in our subject to the actual canvas itself, so it all matches up quite nicely. And then if I pinch with 2 fingers and go full screen with 4, we end up with today's finished tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, drop a like down below, helps the channel out an awful lot. And if you'd like some Procreate content every single week, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. And if you'd like some extra Procreate content, hit the link in the description down below to my Patreon. I'll throw their names up on the screen now, where you get access to even more Procreate tutorials every single month, as well as extra benefits on my Discord server and an exclusive Facebook group. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.